stay on the earth this weekend. I'm pretty excited. God is a mystery. He cannot be figured out. You can't see him, but you can see the result of his work everywhere. He's the God that parted the Red Sea. He's the God that brought manna in the wilderness day after day after day. It rained bread out of heaven. He's the God who fed 5,000 people with a little boy's lunch. I see God all the time when all the bills are consistently paid at Joyce Meyer Ministries, and they're higher than I even know how to count. I have no idea how I'm doing what I'm doing. So I have to say, it's got to be God. It couldn't possibly be anything else. Oral Roberts, who's gone home to be with the Lord, did a sermon and wrote a book many years ago called Don't Give Up. And in it, he talked about who is this fourth man in the fiery furnace. And if you're familiar with the book of Daniel, you know that Daniel was thrown into a fiery furnace because, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were thrown into a fiery furnace because they refused to bow down and worship the wicked king. God tells us to worship him and him alone and not to bow to any other. And the king said, if you don't bow to me, instead of this God that you serve, then I am going to throw you into this fiery furnace. And so they refused to bow, and sure enough, he threw them into the fiery furnace. And the Bible says that he even turned it up 7 times hotter than it was before, which I find interesting because they made the right decision, which was not to compromise. And sometimes when you do the right thing, you feel like the furnace got turned up even hotter. And so then you're like, well, I sure don't understand this. I did the right thing, and now look. I know years ago when I felt like God was calling me into ministry, and I had a full-time job, and Dave had a full-time job, and we didn't really have any money struggles. We had learned how to tithe. Dave was taught that when he was growing up, and we'd always been doing that. And, we didn't have any money struggles. And when God started dealing with me about quitting my job, because I had no time. I didn't know anything. God was calling me to teach, and I didn't know anything, and I had 3 kids. I couldn't take off and go to Bible college, so I needed to study. I felt like God calling me to arrange my life in such a way where I could study and learn something. I had learned enough of the Word to see that there were answers in there for every problem that we have, and I needed time to dig them out. And so I felt that God was telling me to quit my job, and so I kind of did a not obedience, but a sacrifice thing. I quit my job and got a part-time job. And I look back now and I think it's so funny because I offered God part-time obedience, partial obedience. And you know what? God is never going to be satisfied with that. So I was a good employee. I worked hard. I usually got promoted. Everybody liked me. I got my part-time job and got fired. It was supernaturally bad. Everything that I touched, I tore it up. I broke the bookkeeping machine. It was just like a nightmare. Well, it didn't take long, and I'm figuring out God really does not want me to work. But I didn't know how in the world that we were going to pay our bills. I just couldn't figure out how we were going to do that. And so I thought, well, surely after I make this sacrifice, come on now, surely when I make this sacrifice, then God's going to do some miraculous thing in our finances, and we will have more than ever. God is going to reward me for my obedience. Anybody here tonight? And for 6 years, every month we had to have a miracle. I was so scared half the time my knees would shake when I would go to the mailbox. We never had to pay a bill late. Every time God came through. But I tell you, I was, as they say, sweating bullets all the time. And I don't know how you do that, but that's a saying, so we'll just use it. In other words, I was very frightened. I got most of my kids' clothes and things that we needed at garage sales, and I became a coupon queen. I was clipping coupons and using coupons all the time. And to be honest, I got really tired of never having enough of anything. And I was like, why, God, why? I don't understand. I did what you told me to do, and we're in worse shape than ever before. Anybody relate? The furnace got turned up 7 times hotter. But I made a decision that I was not going to go back, that I was going to stick with it and see what God would do. And I remember making a commitment, if nothing ever changes, we're still going to tithe and give to you and do what you've asked us to do. And then, of course, eventually things got taken care of. Well, the furnace was turned up 7 times hotter than before. And when the king looked in there, he said, wait a minute, we put 3 men in that furnace and they were all tied up, they were bound, and now I see 4 men in there and they're all loose. And I love that part. They were actually loosed from their bondage in the furnace. Come on, can you hear me tonight? It was in the furnace that they got free from their bondage. But who is the 4th man? Well, he was Jesus. And so what Oral Roberts did, probably one of the greater things that he did, and I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's about 3 pages long. I'm sure I'd put you to sleep. But he went through every book in the Bible and he found Jesus in every single book in the Bible. And the thing that's so amazing, we have a testimony, and I probably should have had him dug it out and played it for you tonight, but it's a testimony of a Jewish man who went into a bookstore and he saw he knocked a table of books over, and when he picked it up, it was one of my books. And he kind of smirked and, opened it up. And the place he opened it up to said, if you're reading this book today, it's because the God who loves you has a message for you and a plan for your life. Well, he snuck the book home because he didn't want his Jewish wife to know that he was reading it. And he began to read the book. Well, he got so touched, and he noticed I was quoting the Amplified Bible all the time, that he went and he bought an Amplified Bible. And he snuck that Bible in the house, and he's secretly reading it. And then he caught his wife one day, who was also secretly reading the Bible. And long story short, his testimony says, I found Jesus in every book in here. The Messiah that we've been waiting for is here. He's all over the book. And you know what? The God that many people today are looking for and deciding not to believe in because they don't see him doing what they want him to do, they need to start looking for what God is doing and stop murmuring about what he's not doing. When I first got up this morning, I had a headache, and you're sometimes so tempted to complain about what you have, but I thought, wait a minute, I can walk. We need to be thankful for what we do have and stop murmuring all the time about what we don't have, because what we do have is so much greater than what we don't have. And if we had nothing else, we have him. So anyway, who is the 4th man? In Genesis, he's the seed of the woman. In Exodus, he's the Passover lamb. In Leviticus, he's our high priest. In Numbers, he's the pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night. Who was that following them around in the wilderness? Was it just a cloud and a fiery pillow? No, it was God following them around. And who is it that follows you around? Who is it that saves you from so many things that could happen that don't happen to you? God is with you. He has promised to never leave you nor forsake you, and he will take care of you. And even the things that do sneak through and happen, he can work good out of those things if you continue to trust him. Come on. In Psalms, he's our shepherd. In Proverbs and Ecclesiastes, he's our wisdom. In the Song of Solomon, he's our lover and our bridegroom. In Isaiah, he is the Prince of Peace. In Jeremiah, he's our righteousness. And boy, then when you get over to the New Testament, it really gets good. In Matthew, he's the Messiah. In Mark, he's the wonder worker. In Luke, he's the Son of Man. In John, he's the Son of God. In Acts, he's the Holy Spirit. In Romans, he is our justifier. In 1 and 2 Corinthians, he is the gifts of the Spirit. In Galatians, he is our Redeemer from the curse of the law. In Ephesians, he is the Christ of unsearchable riches. In Philippians, he's the God who supplies all of our needs. In Colossians, he is the fullness of the Godhead bodily. In 1 and 2 Corinthians, he is our soon coming King. In 1 and 2 Timothy, he is our mediator between God and man. In Titus, he is our faithful pastor. In Philemon, he is the friend that sticks closer than a brother. Got a few left. Can you take it? In Hebrews, In Hebrews, he is the blood of the everlasting covenant. In James, he is our great physician, for the prayer of faith shall save the sick. In 1st and 2nd Peter, he is our chief shepherd, who shall appear with a crown of unfailing glory. In 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John, he is love. In Jude, he is the Lord coming with 10,000s of his saints. And in Revelation, he is the Lord of lords and the King of kings. Someone give God praise. Who is God? He is everything you need anytime you need him. He's the one who gives me, kind of sticks out a message on worry on my cabinet just to give me a quick confirmation that that was indeed what he was speaking to me, because I had a lot going on and a lot to prepare for, and so God just kind of snuck in there and said, here, honey, let me help you just a little bit extra.
Thanks for listening. Gain more understanding of who God really is when you order today's offer, Who is God? This teaching series is available now as either a 4-CD set or digital download for a donation of any amount in U.S. funds. And we do accept all major